Hello and welcome to John's Author Diary for the week ending December the 26th, 2021. So, what I do every year is I like to do a review of some of my favourite books of the year. This is basically so I don't have to record anything over the Christmas holidays. So, I've put together a list of 10 fiction books, 5 non-fiction books that I read this year that I recommend to anyone. So check these out. My favourite books. These are in no particular order, but I think they all stuck with me. They've all had an impact. So first one is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. Now this is a nautical fantasy, excellent world building, great story, great characters. Really like R.J. as a person, so I will recommend his books all the time. He's got a lot of heart in his writing, so definitely check that out. There was also Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. So this is a book that I talked about a few months ago when I read it, and it struck me that it wasn't really a fantasy. It struck me that it was something else, and so I read that, and there's a lot in there that's interesting. So I would check that out. Very, very unique book, fascinating book. And it's one of those books that kind of gets under your skin and sticks with you. So definitely read that one. Also read Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Palahniuk, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that was good. I'd never read it before. I'd watched the film, obviously back in the day, but I'd never read the book before. Really enjoyed that. The voice in that book is tremendous, and just a really interesting story. And again, I think if you read it in the mindset of Piranesi, I think you'll see the connection if you do that. I also really enjoyed the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I've been reading those. I think I've read the first 5 books in that series by Bernard Cornwell. First book in that is called The Last Kingdom, and this is historical fiction kind of set around the Anglo-Saxon period. Really enjoying this. This is a great series. So I'm going to carry on reading this series next year. Highly recommend that. Highly recommend that. Also really enjoyed The Emperor's Edge by Lindsay Barocca. So this is a kind of fun fantasy, heist, banter, good dialogue, great characters. Definitely recommend that. I'll need to read more of that series. I think I've read the first 2 books of that. I also read the Rain Wild Chronicles series. I think the first book in that is called Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. I didn't actually think much of the first book in that series, but I love the series. I think it's a bit of a slow burner. It takes a while to get going, but once it does, once you've got into the characters, it's great. I also enjoyed The Fallen Blade by John Courtney Grimwood. So this was, I'd describe it as historical fantasy, kind of set in Venice, but with kind of magic and vampires and things like that. So definitely check that out. That's an interesting one. I also enjoyed the Master Thief series by Ben Hale. So this, I think the first book of that was called Jack of Thieves. So this was just fun, heist fantasy, thieves, assassins, all that good stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I think I got a lot from that. And yeah, recommend that. And also this was a revelation, excuse the pun, but Michael J. Sullivan is Rhaenyra Revelations series and his First Empire series. They were just tremendous. I think the Rhaenyra one, I loved the main characters in that. So that's where I'd start. Really enjoyed that. Probably my favourite series of the year, actually. I think that's the one that I would recommend. And if you go back in my diaries, you'll probably see me gushing over those books. So do check those out. In terms of non-fiction books, there are a few. I think most of the books I've been reading this year have either been about business or writing. I did read a few history ones, but the ones that stuck with me are in the business and writing kind of sections. So I read The Dip by Seth Godin. Really like this book. It's just about, I don't know, I suppose the difficulty of when you're learning to do something, when you're on that kind of path to mastery. There's a point where you think you're doing it well, and then it just gets really hard. And I felt this year, I felt it just being, I'm in my, I think, 8th novel I'm writing at the moment. 12th, if I include the ones that I've not published or done anything with. And it's hard. This has been the hardest year in terms of writing, in terms of craft. And I don't know why. I think a lot of it has got to do with the pandemic and all that stuff. But man, I get this, I get the dip. And I think that's what I've been going through. And I think this is why I'm now at that stage where breaking through, doing something bigger. And that's what is going to happen next year. Also, Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. Really enjoyed this book. This is just about the mindset of entrepreneurship and the different things you need to consider when setting up businesses. Now, I recommend reading his other book, which I've mentioned before. It's got a really spammy title, but there's not really a business book like it that laid it out in such a great way. It's called The Millionaire Fast Lane. Highly recommend that book. I think it's just one of the best business books I've read. Gave me a lot to think about, a lot to consider. And, you know, if you are thinking about setting a business, I think it'll put people off setting up certain conventional businesses just because of the models and things like that. So it's definitely worth checking out. As a writing book, my favorite writing book of this year was called The Writer's Guide to Character Emotion by Sherry Soule. Really enjoyed this. I got a lot from this. I feel like reading that book took my writing to another level, to be honest. I think that kind of thinking about things in a deep point of view, a bit of a deeper point of view than I have in the past, you know, that's going to make me change the way I write in the future. And I think the most impactful book I read this year is called Money by Rob Moore. So Rob Moore's a UK-based property entrepreneur, and he does a lot of stuff in the entrepreneurial space. This book just laid everything out that I needed to hear, needed to read, needed to know about. A lot of the stuff I knew already, but just having it in one place is excellent. Now, he's done some other books that are, let's say, retreads or rehashes of this, but this one, highly recommended. So what were your favorite books of the year? Let me know. Love to hear recommendations about great books. So leave them in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or find me on Facebook, facebook.com/John Cronshaw author. So until next time, cheerio.